Hello, everybody. Just giving everybody a chance to come on in. If you are here, give me a thumbs up. The big homie Will Addison in the building. Go ahead and turn off this music here. Lay that on out. Both on YouTube and Facebook, which I have never done before. So if you hear me okay, let the homie know. Boy, do I have something to talk about today, bro. One other thing I want to say. If you want to make a comment in the chat, I will periodically check on chats and respond to them. So if you have a question or comment, I will periodic, but I'm not going to be monitoring it live because I am only one person. Y'all must not know. A lot of times people do this stuff. They got like a whole staff. They got people manning the chat, answering the chat, getting questions. They got their notes in front. They're doing all types of stuff. I'm just one dude, right? I'm not a big production. So, but if you say something, I'll check in every so often if you have a question or comment or a concern. But otherwise, just know that I am not going to be checking everything live. All right. So, as many of you, unless you've been under a rock, you know about this attack that Hamas has done on the people of Israel, the Jews. And this is obviously a big deal. They killed next to 1,000 Jews. And if you understand, I mean, that's a lot of people, no matter how you slice it, right? No matter how you look at it, that's a lot of people. But it's if you think about it proportionately to the United States population, that would be like something like 36,000 people dying in a single day. Oh, no, not 36,000. 36,000? Yes, something like that. I think, yeah, something like 1% of the population or something like that. Very, very, very egregious. So just think about, on 9/11, we had like 3,000 people die. Something like that. So for them to have 1,000 people die in a population of, I want to say it's 9 or 10 million people in Israel, that's kind of a big deal. So I just want to dive into some of the particulars. Y'all, you need to understand that just because this is not happening in the United States, that doesn't mean that it doesn't affect you. It doesn't mean that it doesn't, that it has nothing to do with you. This is something that you should understand. And I want to make a passionate plea today for those of you who are in the church, those of you who call yourself Christ followers. I want to make a passionate plea for you today to understand where we are. And in particular, if you call yourself a Democrat, if you are a Christian and you call yourself a Democrat, and I know that is a disproportionate number of people who are in the black church, because the black church is the single most consistent and persistent supporter of the Democrat Party for reasons that still remain perplexing for me, but we're going to try to decode it. Okay. Now, if you saw my thumbnail for this live stream, it was basically a picture of like a demon taking the mask off of a politician and the devil being underneath it. Y'all, I'm trying to tell you that this is the central theme of this podcast, and this is going to, not podcast, but live stream. And this concept of the mask being off is the central concept that I want you to take from this. The mask is all the way off. Now, I have been doing, and I have been kind of ringing this alarm for years now, saying that the Democrat Party is animated by a demonic spirit. I don't make any qualms about that. I don't take it back. If you don't understand that, excuse me. If you don't understand that, I'm going to say that's I think a problem, because you cannot be free from the enemy if you don't understand his ways and his devices. The Bible says we shouldn't be ignorant to the enemy's to the enemy's devices, right? We shouldn't be ignorant to his tactics. We should understand what they are. And those of us who have discernment should be able to discern good and evil. If you were duped during COVID, if you were duped by the George Floyd riots, if you were duped during the election of Donald J. Trump and during the Trump administration, if all those things got you, if the mainstream propaganda and media got to you during that time, right? I'm going to give you a pass. This is olive branches being extended. I'm going to give you a pass. We're going to start over. We're going to give you a clean slate. But at this time, and I want you to hear, at this time, if you are still deceived, then you are willingly blind. Now, you might have said that. Some people may have said that years ago, right? But I think that right now, if you cannot see that the mask is all the way off, that the Democrat Party has shown us who they are, and it's time for you to believe them. As the saying goes, when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them. And if they show you who they are over and over and over and over again, then you should believe them. And this latest situation with Hamas is another example where the Democrats have shown who they are, the modern left more specifically. I say Democrats as a stand-in, kind of like I say Republicans might be a stand-in for conservatives, but they're not necessarily the same group of people. There are a lot of people who are Republicans who are not necessarily really conservative. You know, we call them rhinos. Excuse me. And there are a lot of people who might call themselves a Democrat, but they're not really hardcore leftists, right? These are not people who are hardcore on the left. But I will say that I think that distinction right now is kind of losing its meaning, right? Is that, well, I'm a Democrat, but I'm not on the left. I think at some point you're going to have to basically own that affiliation if you still call yourself a Democrat. Jesus Christ as Lord says, anyone with, quote, free Palestine must be treated generously and given free tickets to Gaza. Air horns for that, my guy. Air horns for that, for real. Because I think there could be there could be something to that. Okay, so this is what I want to do today. I know that almost none of you, if you're being honest, you don't really understand the Palestinian conflict, right? I mean, let's keep it 100. You don't really know what's going on. So I am going to give you, to the best of my ability, the best possible rundown of what's going on, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I want to give you the history of it. I want to go all the way back to its origins. And I want you to understand why it persists. And I want to give you guys a little bit of perspective on why there are many in the Democrat Party who see these people in Palestine, the Palestinians, they don't see them as terrorists. They see them as freedom fighters. They see them as people who are being oppressed. And I want you to understand how we got to be that way, and I want you to understand thoroughly why it is a lie. Okay, and I want you to see the parallels between what has been happening in this country. So I think the best way to do this, honestly, is a video that I found on PragerU. Now, some people, I just want to give you a quick heads up. Some people, oh wait, I'm on the wrong, I am on the wrong page here. I apologize. Let's see. Oh, please. Don't tell me. Please. You cannot be serious. You cannot be serious. Oh, this is beautiful. This is just beautiful. All right, let's try this. I'm going to have to close this out here. Let's go back here. Hey, man, when you go on live, things happen. And for some reason, I cannot seem to get all right. Can somebody let me know?
10 years later.
Can somebody let me know? Let's see here. What is being shown here? All right, let's see. Oh, Lord. Oh, goodness. This is just beautiful. All right, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm I can do this another way. I'm going to just read my notes. Okay. Somebody's mad. Somebody don't want you to have this information. But you know what?
After Hamas,
I am who I am, and I do what I does. I does what I do. Okay. I'm going to try this one more time. That is not working. That is not working. All right. Okay. Well, let me just give you the rundown. All right. So you're just going to be looking at me. It's going to be less exciting, less interactive, less, multimedia, but it'll be information. Let me just give you the rundown of what happened. Okay. So Palestine is this little area kind of in the Middle East, right? It's basically historical Israel, right? Where all those stories you read in the Bible about Israel and the land of Israel, when we say Palestine, that's basically what we're talking about. We're talking about historical Israel, right? Now, generally speaking, that whole area, it's not exactly one-to-one, but that's close enough, okay? Now, during the 1800s, that whole area was controlled by what's called the Ottoman Empire, right? And the Ottoman Empire is essentially the Turkish Empire. It's you can think of it as Turkey, right? Now, modern day Turkey is actually much, much smaller in its geographic footprint than what the Ottoman Empire was. But essentially, the Ottoman Empire kind of fell, it collapsed, and then Turkey kind of reconstituted itself after the Ottoman Empire fell, and they kind of reconstituted themselves in a much smaller footprint. You can think of it almost in a similar way as you might think of the USSR, right? The USSR, the Soviet Union used to be a much bigger place, and then after the USSR fell, then Russia was all that really remained of the so-called USSR. So Russia is kind of the hub. Think of it much like that, right? So the Ottoman Empire were an Arab kind of Muslim kind of empire, right? And they controlled Palestine. Now, mind you, that Israel was kind of vacated because the Jews had been scattered, as it was prophesied by Jesus before he was crucified. He told his disciples, "Hey, you see this temple? Not one stone will be left upon another. You will be scattered." And all of that stuff, we know that Jesus' prophecies about Jerusalem and about Israel came true. Excuse me. So all of the Jews scattered throughout the world, and they mostly scattered into Europe. Okay, so they scattered into Europe, but for years and years and years, the Jews were kind of everywhere they went. They were persecuted. And so eventually they started to come back to the Ottoman Empire because they found some solace there. Anyway, as the Ottoman Empire started to collapse, right, there actually started to be a little bit of conflict between the Arabs there and the Jews, right? And then when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, or right around the time it started collapsing, this movement called Zionism kind of started coming back to coming into the fray. And Zionism is basically where all the Jews saying, "Hey, we're all scattered around the world. Everywhere we go, we're being persecuted. We need a place of our own, a sovereign nation, a state of our own, so that we can be in a place where where people are not trying to kill us all the time." Right? So Zionism started before the fall of the Ottoman Empire or thereabouts, right? And then Britain actually ended up defeating the Ottoman Empire and took over the land of Palestine. Now, the British, when they took it over, they were kind of sympathetic to the Zionist movement. And because they were sympathetic to the Zionist movement, they wanted to facilitate more Jews coming to back to Palestine or historical Israel. The Jews and the Arabs in that region, they still didn't get along. And but basically, what happened in about and right around World War I, the British decided, hey, World War I is when they defeated the Ottoman Empire, and then the British says, okay, we're going to facilitate the Zionism. And in about 1914, because of the intense fighting between the Arabs and the Jews, they said, all right, why don't we just split up the state, right? This is the origins of what some called the two-state solution, right? Now, at the time, the Jews are a very small minority in the area. They're only about a tenth of the population. And so they decided that they would try to split the land up and give the Jews only about maybe 20% of the land, given a little buffer for them to return. Well, the Arabs rejected that proposition, and the Jews accepted it. The Jews says, okay, they got less than 20% of the land, somewhere around there. The British said the Arabs could have the other 80%, and the Arabs rejected it. They said no. Okay? Now, fast forward, right? Continuing to be kind of intense kind of conflict between the Arabs and the Jews in Palestine and what we call now Jerusalem, right? From there, from the end of World War I up until World War II. So check out what happened. Now, I just want to say this before I even go there. Just think about this for one moment. The Palestinians, they rejected having control and as a sovereign state of 80% of where Israel is today. They rejected that. Now, that's going to be important as we move forward because there is no version of this world where you would be presented with that kind of opportunity, you reject it, and then you get to say later on that somebody did you dirty or somebody pushed you out of your land. It's kind of like, you ever seen that show, Let's Make a Deal, right? When they make you an offer, right, and then you reject it, the next offer is not going to be as good, right? So anyway, that's what they did. Okay. So basically, World War II comes around. Well, let's before that, 1936, the Arabs launched this huge attack. They started fighting with the British. They started fighting with the Jews, and they're like, listen. For 3 years they were at war, and they just said, look, man, we can't deal with this anymore. But then World War II started, and this is when the Holocaust took place. And so World War II started, and on the heels of World War II, the United Nations now got in and tried to broker now peace and try to say, okay, let's try another two-state solution. But this time they said, we're going to give the Jews slightly more than half of the land, and we'll give the Arabs slightly less than half. Now, just so you understand, this was like on the heels of the Holocaust, and now more than ever, the Jews need their own place, right? The Jews need their own place, and so they ended up not being able to settle on that. Why? Because even though the Jews were willing to accept it, the Arabs were not. So you see a pattern here. The Islamic Arabs, every time a two-state solution, a compromise for peace was presented, they rejected it. So that was basically at the end of World War II. And then 1948, that was basically what they call the famous 6 Days War, where every single Arab nation, I wish you could understand, this little tiny nation called Israel, this little tiny sliver of people, a sliver of land with these tiny people surrounded by like 20 Arab nations, all who hate their guts. They went to war with Israel in 1948 and they lost. Israel beat them. Now, that should have told them something. Somebody should have said, well, God must be with these people because every time we try to kill them, we do not succeed, right? And so
10 years later.
Excuse me. So then there was that. So now, 1948, the Jews basically take control of the land. So here were the Arabs. They had two opportunities to basically compromise and take control of the land, and they refused. That's the second time they basically chose violence. They chose violence. They were the ones in every instance. They were the ones who refused to compromise and chose violence. Fast forward to 1967. Again, this time Egypt leading the charge against Israel and wanted to basically destroy them. And then there's this infamous, they give what's called the infamous 3 no's, right? They say there's no recognition of Israel, there's no compromise of Israel, and there will be no peace with Israel. So no, no, no. So right off the bat, the three no's in 1967, and then there was war again. Now, the videos I had queued up were a much more elegant way of kind of showing that, and I am not sure why I cannot, why it's only showing me this. But in any case, let's see here. Let's see if I close that, see what will happen. Yeah, it won't. So anyway, where was I? So now you understand kind of the history of that whole conflict, right? The whole conflict is this: Israel needed a place. They came back to their historical homeland, the place where they were originally. They were met with hostiles who were basically Arab Palestinians. Every time a peace deal tried to get brokered, the Arabs rejected it. There was war. But this whole time now, mind you, more and more Jews are coming from over the world, scattered all over the world, coming back to Zion, right? Coming back to Israel. And they're growing stronger, and they're growing militarily and economically more influential in that part of the world. And the more and more they progress, right, and the more Israel builds up that area and becomes a prosperous nation, while all of these, while those people in Gaza and in Palestine and those areas surrounding, they basically contribute nothing but hostility. They grow to resent the Jews more and more and more. As the Jews become more prosperous, they grow to resent them more and more. So now, all that being said, how does this relate to the modern left and what they're doing? Because if you haven't noticed, there are a lot of people who are actually basically supporting the modern left. They are supporting
the weekend.
Excuse me here. They're supporting Hamas. They're basically in cahoots with Hamas. So basically, the Chicago's Black Lives Matter chapter basically says, "Hey, we stand with Palestine," and they literally post something on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter or X, literally showing a. I wish I could show you this. Gosh, I'm so annoyed that this is not working. For my screen share here, let me try one more thing. Y'all bear with me just a moment here. I got technical difficulties, but I am going to overcome this. Let's just see one here. Okay. Well, apparently not. Apparently not. All right. Okay, let me just continue. So, Black Lives Matter. I stand with Palestine. Okay? We fast forward here. This is what Black Lives Matter posts. Somebody else posts this on one of their social media pages. It says, Black Lives Matter grassroots stands in solidarity with our Palestinian family who are currently resisting 57 years of settler colonialism and apartheid. As Black people continue to fight to end militarism and mass incarceration in our own communities, let us understand the resistance in Palestine as an attempt to tear down the gates of the world's largest open-air prison. As a radical Black organization grounded in abolitionist ideals, we see clear parallels between Black and Palestinian people. Now, if that is not the biggest load of garbage you have ever seen. Notice that they don't actually go back far enough, because they say, 57 years. What are they talking about? They're going back to 1967, right? Where Egypt basically tried to go to war against the Jews for the third time, mind you, after two times previously having rejected the peace talks and instigating war and violence. And I wish I could give you the details here, because I'm not doing it justice, just how egregious what they did was. Here they're talking about the people in Palestine being occupied by colonialists. What are they talking about? Now I want to put this in perspective here, because I need you to understand the hypocrisy of the modern left. Think about where the Jews, the position that the Jews were in at the end of World War II. On the heels of the Holocaust, where literally millions of them were murdered by a madman. Now, I have been told religiously by the modern left that we, as a nation, the United States of America, should keep our borders open to the refugee. We should have open borders. They are letting people's migrants, illegal migrants, spill over the border in droves and tens and hundreds of thousands. Tens of thousands every month, hundreds of thousands since the Biden administration has taken over. And they're telling us that the reason why we should let them in and we should share our resources and we should do all of these things is because these people are fleeing political persecution. But at the same time, they are telling you that Israel, who is occupying their historical land, the place where they were first, some 2,000 years prior to what we're talking about now, they end up getting scattered throughout the world. They end up migrating back to their land of origin on the heels of being murdered and persecuted all over the world. And now we're being told that Palestine, or the Palestinian Arabs, are justified in rejecting Israel as a cohabitant of a land where the people in Israel were seeking political asylum and seeking asylum from violence and persecution. They're the ones who literally said that the Palestinian Arabs, no, the Jews, they shouldn't have any right to be here. We don't want to share the land with them. We don't want to compromise with them. We don't care if tens of millions, we don't care if millions of them were just murdered by a madman. We don't care. They don't deserve to be here. Now, there is no state in all of the world, there is no geographic area where Jews could say, this is our land. But there are some north of 20 Arab and Muslim nations right in that same general area where those same Palestinian Arabs could have gone to, where the Jews had nowhere, on the heels of the Holocaust. And here you have the modern left trying to lecture us that we should have, that the Jews had no right to be there. They're a bunch of squatters. They're colonialists. They're occupying the land, and they're oppressing the Palestinians. This is a bunch of nonsense. But the hypocrisy goes further. The hypocrisy goes further because think about when we think about all of the times that the Palestinians have been the aggressor, that they have instigated violence, much like they just did just this past weekend. Not only did Israel not say, all right, that's enough. we just going to wipe all, everybody's got to go. It would be like this. It would be like if someone tried to murder you, right? They came into your house, they tried to murder you, and instead of you kicking them out, you said, all right, listen, man, you can stay in the basement so long as you don't try to kill me again. If you don't try to kill me again, you can stay here. Because that's basically what Israel is doing. The Gaza Strip is a little strip of land right there on the west in Israel, on the western part of Israel, western border. I think it borders Egypt. Every chance they get, they aggress and they try to kill and they try to and they try to instigate some sort of conflict. The whole time, what everyone tries to do is they try to negotiate some sort of what they call the two-state solution, right? Graced, so-called justice movement. The movement that basically just got exposed a couple of years ago of just taking millions of dollars and ended up buying a whole bunch of properties for their founders, Patrice Cullors and the rest of their scam artists. It took millions of dollars. Have you ever asked yourself where did all the money that the Black Lives Matter movement that they brought in, where did it all go? I would like to know where all that money went, because I certainly can't figure out where it went. But in any case, they ended up all of these kind of declarations about the so-called colonialism being practiced, the apartheid state, the colonialism being perpetrated on the Palestinians by the Jews, presumably. It's fitting that it's coming from the Black Lives Matter because there are many parallels, and the parallels are this. The Black Lives Matter movement is predicated on the idea that the police presence in black communities is not, it has nothing to do with the violence and the disarray and the disorder in those communities, but it has everything to do with white people's desire to oppress blacks. There's no reason for them to be there except for the fact that they function as some sort of modern day version as an overseer, right? Kind of like the slave overseers during slavery times. The police are only there to monitor the black people, to keep them in check, to oppress them, to harass them for no reason. That's the whole narrative of the Black Lives Matter movement. And this is exactly the same kind of narrative that they are perpetrating when it comes to the Palestinians. They do not acknowledge the repeated refusal of the Palestinians to peacefully pursue, without any future prospects of war, a negotiation where they would have their own region of that area that they could govern sovereignly, and they could do that. They would give probably much more land than they really would prefer to give if they could ensure that there would be peace moving forward. The Palestinians, the Arab Palestinians in that area, they have done that at every single turn. But they're saying that the Jewish military presence and the basically all the security and the surveillance and all of the things that the Jews have to do to keep themselves safe, they're not there to stop the violence, to stop these attacks. That's not why they're there. They're only there because they're trying to oppress the Palestinians. They're trying to oppress them, and it has nothing to do with their violent tendencies. It has nothing to do with the fact that the Palestinians has repeatedly said death to Israel, death to America, death to the West. It has nothing to do with the fact that they have said the only Jews, are dead Jews. It has nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that, apparently. It's incredible to me that we haven't figured this out. Okay, so now I finally got the chat back, so I want to read a couple of these. Jesus Christ, leftism is de facto Satanism. Facts. Ottoman Empire was responsible for the Dark Ages. They were burning, looting, murdering before ATM. Okay, all right. Somebody says, I have an idea. Why don't you... Sorry. Says, I have an idea. Why don't you gringos give back half of the United States to the American natives? I'm sure you willingly are going to accept that. Okay, this is an interesting. Okay, this is an interesting statement here. This is an interesting statement. Christian Paul. No, Okay, this is. I like this. See, because this is a teachable moment here. Let's compare, for example, what happened to in Palestine to what happened to the Native Americans. Because the fact is, the Native Americans have a much better case for some sort of for to say, hey, we were displaced unjustly, we were here first, and all of that stuff. They have a much better case than any of the Palestinians do, and the reason why that's the case is because the Palestinians, for example, they'd never functioned as a sovereign state. They were occupied under the Ottoman Empire. So the Ottoman Empire was basically Turkey, right? It was basically the Turkish Empire. And if you look at modern day Turkey, where it is, basically modern day Turkey, they expanded. They basically they themselves, the Ottoman Empire, essentially were the colonialists of their time. Okay, they were the ones empire building and expanding and conquering lands and conquering nations. So, so the idea that the Ottomans and the Turkish people and and the Arabs that came to Palestine as a result of the expansion of the Ottoman Empire, the idea that they were the rightful owners of the land, much like something akin to what the Native Americans enjoyed here in America, is complete nonsense. It's complete nonsense. The Ottomans were the colonialists. They were the expansionists, which is I'm told by the left repeatedly that's wrong. That's immoral. So in any case, that's the issue here. So when you say when this Christian Paul, I'm assuming you're not in the thing anymore. It says, I have an idea. Why don't you gringos give back half the United States to the American natives? I'm sure you are willing to accept that. First of all, the Native Americans didn't occupy half of America. Second of all, if we're going to make that comparison, the Native Americans were actually given what's called reservations. There's still large areas of land that the Native Americans have exclusively. Non-Native Americans can't move there. They have all the rights to be there, and it's theirs, right? And that kind of agreement, if anything like that would have happened in Palestine or over in current Israel, then the Palestinians would have agreed to some sort of settlement. Basically, what they were offered initially in 1914, which was 80% of historical Israel, 80% of the land, and Israel would take less than 20%. And then I think the British still had control over I think they still had control over like Jerusalem and some of the Holy Lands or whatever. So they had that opportunity not once, not twice, but 3 times. So just imagine if you would have put that back in today's time with the Native Americans, to be quite frank, that kind of silly point. What that would have been like is if we would have offered the Native Americans, hey, after we came in and kind of did our westward expansion, we'd say, hey, why don't we give you, we'll keep half of America, you keep half of it. And they say, no, we want all of it. And then they attack us. And then we defeat them, and then we say, all right, well, we'll give you another, significant portion, more than you need. No, we don't want that. You attack us again. That's what it would be like. But anyway, I want to get back to the left. I want to get back to the modern left because once again, I think it's important to understand how and why uh, uh, the modern left is so enamored with Hamas. Just think about the egregious atrocities that has happened in these attacks. Just a horrendous attacks, right? It's been confirmed that they have literally beheaded small children. That's confirmed that actually happened. If you are literally out here not and you're not able to recognize that evil and you're trying to make excuses, that should tell you everything you need to know about a person like that. Because the problem is this. This is the same thing we see in America whenever you see these so-called activists, these people seeking so-called justice, when they loot and they riot and they commit acts of violence and they do all of these things. You had this, police officers being killed and stores being robbed and whole neighborhoods and cities and towns being burned down. And the same way they try to justify what Black Lives Matter are doing, that's how they're trying to justify what Hamas is doing. Hamas has gone in to Israel and killed civilians, women, children, raped, pillaged, murdered. People that are just living their lives. They didn't go in to shoot and kill enemy combatants. Grandmas on the street, little children. What type of morally depraved person can't understand how debased that is? There is no version of reality where you can justify that. And we wonder why the modern left, why they have an affinity for the sort of evil and obviously immoral things that Black Lives Matter and those sort of leftist activist groups are doing. You have to wonder why. Why does the modern left have such an affinity for the sort of violent and immoral groups that are seeking their revolutionary aims? Because it's because this is who these people are, and something that Jesus said. The Bible says that a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand, right? So there's something important to realize, that and Satan's kingdom, because that was the context of it. When Jesus was casting out demons out of people, they said, well, you cast out demons by a demon because you're the prince of demons. You got the prince of demons. That's why you cast out demons. And he said, if Satan cast out Satan, how does that make sense? That doesn't make any sense. Satan's not going to fight against himself. That's weird. It's the same idea here, where you see that the same demonic spirits that animate these so-called revolutionary movements in the United States, there's the same ones that support the murder and the rape of women, the murder of children. It's the same kind of group. Peter says somehow our culture getting meaner and non-thinking. Exactly correct. That's exactly correct, Peter. Uh, Listen, there's the mask is all the way off, and so here's the thing that I want to emphasize once again. If you're a Christian, and man, this whole thing got away from me here. I basically had a whole lineup of videos that now aren't working, and so this is. I might have to do this stream again in order to do it justice. But here's the thing that Right now, the United States is full of people who we have not vetted and have not identified because they left our border open. And many of those people came from the areas where these sort of terrorist attacks are common. The question you have to ask, when they say death to Israel, they're also saying death to America, right? That's what they're doing. So I think it's time for us to wake up. I think the mask is all the way off. Um, and I really think it's time for us to say, what spirit is animating the left in America? What spirit is that? What if you go to these universities and you see these kids at Harvard and these different ones, they're supporting Hamas. The the whole history of this conflict is well documented. It's like there can be anybody who's sitting there saying that the Palestinians are being oppressed and they're the ones being put upon is completely dishonest and completely ignoring history. So then, it's a if you think about it, it's the same reason why we can have a police shooting in the United States, a completely justified police shooting. You can see the whole history of the thing, and everyone's still saying, "Oh, it's racism." George Floyd, racism. It didn't have anything to do with the fact that he resisted arrest or that he had fentanyl or the only thing is that, oh, those white people just wanted to kill him. That's it's nonsense. It's nonsense. Um, all right, I've gone on and on and on and on. I don't know what's happening on Facebook, but in any case, um, friends, I just hope that we wake up. I hope that we wake up. I hope that we realize what's going on. I hope that we understand that the spirit that is animating this political system in the left in the United States is the same people who can't even bring themselves to condemn these terrorist attacks. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. Unfortunately, that stream didn't go the way I had hoped, but just let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are. I encourage you to get yourself caught up on the whole history of the Palestine conflict. You will see that Israel is in the right, and that's about all. That's about all I can say about that. All right, friends. I am going to get out of here. Um, just let me know what if there's anything else that you wanna hear or talk about. Um, More content coming up. Make sure you share this content, like, share, subscribe. Till next time, friends. God bless you.